So guys, welcome back. This is Val. In today's video, I'm gonna show you the 5 tricks to speed up laggy preview inside DAZ Studio without buying a new PC or upgrading your PC or buying a new graphic card, right? So at times you see a gorgeous prop like this one, Polish Sci-Fi Rusty Railroad, right? It's a great set. I have already bought it and it looks amazing, but if you load it inside DAZ Studio, it's incredibly slow, and I mean so slow it's almost impossible to work with. Right now I have it in wireframe preview, and I'm just right clicking up here on the camera just to rotate the camera, and see it takes seconds to just that's slow, right? So the thing is, right now I'm on a laptop which, well, it's a little bit older. It has an RTX 260 graphic card, which has the RTX feature of denoiser and all that, right? So it has that. It's a little bit older, but still, it's kind of a powerful laptop anyway. But the thing is, it makes it very difficult to work on your scene when it's that laggy. It can take minutes just to add a single light, and it can take minutes to tweak that light, or half an hour to just position a character properly. I mean, imagine having this scene and you throw in a character in it, or 2 or 3 or 4, or a spaceship, right? It becomes unbearable. So one of the first things you want to do is, if I switch over to texture shaded, you see that it's a little bit quicker, right? A little bit quicker previewing. So texture shaded preview is a little bit quicker than wireframe. And there is a specific thing you can do in preferences, and you then go to interface. All right, so interface here has a setting called texture resources, and right now it's set to quality. That means that when I rotate the camera, it has a little bit of lag. It's not completely fluid, and it's just, it's a very heavy scene, right? So it goes pretty okay right now in texture shaded, but it went really slow in wireframe. I mean, wireframe is unbearable to work with. It's just, it takes seconds just to move the camera, right? That's horrible. All right, so back to the setting and back to interface. I'm going to switch over to performance. All right, apply, accept, and let's just wait for it to switch. I'm going to just pause the video while this is, yeah, okay, it went. And now it forces the graphic card to work a little bit faster. So now if I move around this, it doesn't do much in a wireframe, right? It's still horrible. But when we switch over to texture shaded, let's do that real quick. Oh, real slow. All right, come on, let me pause. It has now less resolution and detail, which makes the whole scene more rapid in response. All right, and remember, wireframe is seldom quicker. It often involves showcasing everything, so it is slower, right? But that doesn't need to, but can speed up your workflow quite a bit. And especially if you have a very intense scene with a lot of textures, this will speed up the update. Bear in mind, this is not a magic pill. In my case, in this particular scene, there's not a whole lot of difference. It's a little bit more fluid, I would say, but it's not like a super shocking difference, right? So, trick number 2, what else can we do to speed up all this stuff if we want to have more fluid, preview? Well, let's say we want to just use a fraction of the scene. Let's say we just want to use this particular setup right here. Right, we're going to be rendering over here. We don't need about the rest, and we are thinking, man, we don't really need all that junk behind the camera. Look at this, there's a lot of junk in here, right? So can we safely remove it? Both yes and no. The way DAZ Studio works is that since a few versions back, people can, or the designers obviously, can use something called instances, right? And an instance is basically a copy or a clone of a prop or a part of your set. And sometimes when, let's say, this wall over here is the real wall, and let's just pretend now that it's copied several times and reused elsewhere, maybe in here. So if I remove the original, the copy will also go away. So that's a bad idea, right? Sorry about that. So we need to be careful what we remove so that we don't remove the stuff we need. And often you can see on the prop how it looks like. And if there is a real square here or a bone, right? Or something like that, then it's a real object and it's safe to remove it if you don't need it, right? And that also, just saying, sometimes a scene can be just a single prop, right? And that's, well, that makes it kind of difficult to remove the stuff you don't need. But in most cases, very often, there are items, scenes are separated and there's a lot of items you can remove that you don't need. The way clones look like, if you copy something, it will look like this. It's like a shallow, hollow outline on the box, right? That's a clone. So if I remove the original toolbox the original toolbox, this will also disappear because the original is gone, right? Let me just remove that. Cool. So let's do that right now. Let's rotate the scene slightly. Let me just see what my mouse is doing here. Not sure what's that was really close. Slow right now for some reason. All right. So let's click on items, use the tool called node selection. You select items, all right, and it says rusty railroad. Not sure if we can remove that. Often you can click on visibility just to see what happens if you remove it. And in this case, everything goes. But see that the view now, it goes faster, right? So this is what we want, but not that way, of course, right? So we can't remove the base. So apparently this set is made from like a base, and then there are items added like this one on top. Well, this is behind, so we don't need it. Let's remove it. This one here is also behind. We don't need it. So simply go around your set and remove the stuff that you don't need. This one, when you click on this one, it goes to this, and this is somehow the main item that you can remove. When there's bones, it's a figure. It's a so-called figure, which dates back to Poser, how limbs were kind of structured to a like a character. But sometimes props are also made as figures, and that kind of makes it difficult to remove stuff because you remove the mid bone, everything vanishes. So you can't do that, right? But here we can remove those boxes, right? We don't need that. We can click on the door. No, we can't. Can we click on this one? Apparently it's an excavator that's part of the bone structure, so we can't remove that either. But here's something. Can't remove that either. This one here, can't remove that either. So see, you got to be kind of picky about what you remove. That stuff here we can remove. Pipes here, part of the huge set, can't remove that. So apparently a lot of the stuff in the background we can remove. Let's see what else we can remove here. The fence, let's say we don't need it, remove it. The box here, let's say we don't need it. It's part of the set, apparently, so we can't remove it. That one's also part of the set. That one too. So you see, in this case, there's a lot of stuff that can't be removed, which makes it difficult to kind of descale this set, right? It has too much stuff happening or in the set that can't be removed. Now, can you, if you're just gonna render in here, can you remove stuff from the figure? Well, you can make them certainly invisible. Let's do that. You can click on the eye icon, right? Let's click on this one. It's the ground, can't remove that. The excavator we don't need. We can click to untick it here. It's still in the memory, so it doesn't kind of free up as deleting stuff, right? When you delete stuff from the scene, that removes a lot of, you know, memory overhead, right? But when you just make them invisible, well, they are no longer being present in the scene per se, but this tunnel is we need, right? But they are still occupying memory, right? I'm just going to show you what happens when you make items invisible, because that can also speed up your flow because you have less stuff that are being shown. And we have some, let's say, over here, this part over here, and we have this big part on the top here. That's a back building in way back in the scene that we don't need. So see, we are removing now stuff. All right, we have some more. It's still a very, very large set. Here, we can remove that. Cool, all right, those boxes we can actually delete. All right, that secondary tunnel over here, I reckon we can maybe remove that. Let's see. Yep. So what happens when you start deactivating stuff like that is that you have less to show. All right, so let me switch over to wireframe now, just to show you that it will speed up to some extent. It's a little bit slow starter here, but you can see it updates much quicker, right? It's virtually double the speed right now. It's still super laggy, right? Again, it's not a magic pill, but it goes a little bit faster. So that's that. Let's jump to trick number 3. So an often overlooked aspect of reducing the overhead is to, and specifically when you have, you know, items that are like here in the as a figure, right? Because it's easy to remove props but not figures, right? What you can do is check the surfaces and the textures being applied. For instance, this item over here has obviously a lot of surfaces, and with that a lot of textures. All right, and if you remove an item and that item, or hide it like we did here, we can't remove that because it's a figure, right? But if you no longer need it in your scene and it has specific textures that are not needed, you can just simply choose none and it will go away. If that is a, you know, texture that's specific to that part, you have now freed up memory from the graphic card, and the less overhead it has, the faster it will go. It's just the way it works, right? So you can pretty much select all of this and remove the textures. Just click on none, select none, right? Just remove it. And by the way, you can select multiple objects in your scene and multiple surfaces. So you can do this within just a few clicks and they are gone, right? So that removes overhead from that particular item. You can click on this one. And remember, if the textures we have removed now are present elsewhere in the scene, then they'll still occupy the same space, so to speak, right? So we can't just remove and well, you're not saving anything unless those parts are really unique and you don't kind of borrow textures from other parts, right? So I think I'm not sure what happened here, but I think we kind of removed textures from everything by mistake. I think we did that. Somehow by mistake I removed everything. And So now if I look at texture shaded, it looks like this, all right? But this is just to prove that it goes faster without textures being included, right? It also renders faster when you don't have textures. And another side note here is if I undo the texture deletion, I want to show you something that's really cool that a lot of people kind of don't do or would not think of doing. And that is to reduce the texture size. So if you take a look at this texture here, it says what it's called. Click on Browse. And here you can see that this is not a texture heavy scenery. Okay, it doesn't do a lot of, it doesn't have overhead in the texture space. They are just 2K maps and not a whole lot of them too either, right? It's basically just what, 15-20 textures, and they don't take up much space. But if these maps were 4K or maybe 8K, you can load them in Photoshop and reduce their size and resave them, always save them, the originals, and back them up. And then you can just load them into Photoshop, and especially if you have a bunch of them, you can use a script inside Photoshop to run through everything and just reduce them on the go, right? And the way this works is here we are inside the texture folder of polish, and we're gonna look that scenery up, which is over, it doesn't appear to be here. Let's go back. If you are uncertain, you can always check here. It says okay. See, it's under environments, sci-fi, rusty, railroad. It's not, it doesn't include the polish vendor name. So sometimes that's missed or by design, I'm not sure. So it's in DAZ folder, then environments, and here we have it, right? So the way this works is that you load a single texture into Photoshop. I'm not gonna show you the full thing, and just a quick note. So if this is an 8K texture or 4K, you can downscale it to save memory, right? So the way you do this is you go to actions, you create a new action, click on record. You see this red dot right now, it's recording. So now you go ahead and scale this to, well, I'm just gonna downscale to 1K just right now, just for the demo. And then you can just click on stop. So you have now recorded downscaling, right? Now you turn that off, and now you go to batch, scripts, where is it right now? Sorry, automate a batch, and you choose the action you just created, which is action 37 by default. You choose the folder, which is the folder we want to load from. So you click on choose, you go to a folder, in this case it's in the DAZ folder. Not that one. It's in the DAZ folder and environments. There we go, right? So that's the folder, so click on select. And then you choose here, save and close. And then you click on OK. And then it's gonna run through all the textures in that folder and process them. Now, the thing is, this is something I do, you know, when I have a lot of textures, like 40, 50, 60 textures, right? And they are a little bit too high in resolution. You can downscale from 4K to 3K and still get really good, you know, results. And it doesn't sound that much, but scaling down, just looking at a texture, how much texture occupies in space, looking at a 4K map, times is 16.7 million. All right. Damn. There we go. And if you scale it down to 2K, you're thinking it must be half, right? But it's not. It's actually 1/4. So if you take this now, 248 times 248, it's, as you can see, 1/4, right? So scaling from 4K to 3K is actually almost half, and you wouldn't believe it, but it's almost half the texture consumption. Can't write today for some reason. I think my coffee is wearing out. So if you calculate this one times, see that? It's nearly half. It's incredible. But I mean, 3K is not a whole lot less resolution than 4K, right? Still a lot. But it's almost half the consumption of memory. So keep that in mind. Scaling down your textures, right? Trick number 4. What is that? Well, that's creating an HDR map of your set. So, unfortunately, this is not a good solution if you are having an older system that is laggy, because that takes a lot of power. To create HDR maps takes a whole lot of power and long time rendering. When I create HDR maps, I use my larger PC that has dual RTX 280 Ti cards, which was a few years back, it was a beast machine. It's not that anyway today, right? It's not anywhere near the latest graphic cards, but still a kind of a powerful PC. The thing is, it still takes me 2 hours of rendering per frame at this resolution, right? 10,000 times 5 to render an HDR. A single HDR map takes 2 hours to render on that PC, which has 64 gigabyte of RAM and 2 RTX 280 Ti cards. So you can imagine that it's not a good solution if you are struggling with time already, right, to render those. But if you're doing animation, it's for sure a time saver, because you can render out once and you get it, you get a 360-degree map that you can reuse for each of the frames of your animation, right? So for animation, that's a great time saver. For stills, not so much, because you have to render the map first. So let me show you how that works. You basically set up your lights right in your scene. I'm not gonna show you a complete full thing, but you set your map. You want to set the height of your camera. See how laggy the scene is, and we have already stripped off the few elements of it. It's still super laggy. By the way, this scene was super laggy on my large PC too. Super laggy. I was pulling my hair setting up an HDR sequence from the set. So basically, you go to lens on your camera and you set it to spherical. All right, set the resolution here. The resolution you need is at least 8,000 times 4,000, at least, to get a good decent map. Anything above is great to a certain point, because if you go too much, you will have the downfall or downside of having a too large HDR map, which occupies too much space. Remember, if you just increase it a little bit, you can almost double the amount of data being used, right? So 16K maps sound good on paper, but they occupy a lot of space. So a lot of maps I have in my store have only 10K, sometimes 12K, right? Because that's enough to get good decent results. Now, so we have stripped off a lot of stuff here. That's why it's lacking here. But this is how you set it up. And then you basically click on the camera, make sure it's straight looking, or you're gonna be in trouble, right? So make it straight on the Y, make it straight on the Z. This here can be a little bit rotated if you need to, and then set a proper height. If you're gonna use it for characters and you need to have the camera close on their face, use around 150 to 170 height, and use 90 for mid height of the body and 30 to 60 for a low camera. So if you don't want to spend time rendering your own HDR maps, what is the absolute quickest way you can create use this scene without pulling your hair? Well, it's like this. It goes like this. See, it's so laggy, I can't hardly use it. This is not a good optimized set. It's super laggy. So here's how you can use a super quick rendering for this. Trick number 5, which is, ta-da, using a backdrop. That comes with a specific thing. I'm gonna show you that in a second. Let me just turn off that 360 first. All right, here we go. Now I have the background set. What I want to do is render this. Okay, so it's so super excuse me. I usually want to pause the video when I'm coughing, but I didn't have time to do that right now. It got so laggy I couldn't find my mouse cursor on the screen, so I apologize for that. Now, let's set the light. Let's do just a little bit something here, just so we see just a little more. Nothing too shocky here, right? Just a little bit more light, and there we go. Let's just set a summer each date, and rotate it, and just get a little bit more sunshine onto the set. There we go. Okay, so how do we survive the laggy preview, the slow rendering of the scene without pulling our hair and use it as a backdrop in our scene? Well, here's how we do that. You go to your general settings. Let's not use 10,000 here, shall we? Reduce the size of the render. Use 69 if 69 is the preferred screen ratio you're gonna be using, right? Now I'm reducing the screen size because that speeds up rendering. Every time you put the X amount as half, so if I originally wanted to do, let's just say 1280, right? If I go to 640, that's 4 times faster. 4 times faster, right? Next thing I'm gonna do is go to here and set rendering quality. Dial that back to 0.1, not even 1. That's a lot of, well, that's a crappy quality, but we don't need so much. Set max samples 200, not 5,000. And now let this render. So what is this gonna do? Well, I'm just saving my scene. To start with, it's gonna render quick. As quickly as we humanly can, right? So let's go for filtering. Enable denoiser if you can survive in this extremely slow scenery. I doubt it. My poor laptop is cooking right now. So I'm gonna just make sure the auxiliary viewport is also on camera. There we go. Hit on render. Now, because this is a smaller screen and 1/10 of the quality, it will render 40 times faster than 1280 times 720 at quality 1. Okay, so this is gonna render really well, not fast because it's a slow scene, but it's gonna render faster. Now here's the cool trick. We are not gonna let this finish. Why? Because we don't need it. We're gonna use it as a blurry background. So we are done. The render is completed. Yep, after just 35 seconds. We're gonna save this image now. If I can get my PC to do other things than render, let me just go switch over to texture shaded, and let's save the last render. All right. There we go. File, save as render, and we're just gonna call it backdrop. I'm gonna keep the BMP format for maximum quality because we're gonna make it blurry inside Photoshop. So inside Photoshop, I'm gonna just load that image real quick in here, and I'm gonna blur it because blurring a low-res image, what it does, we can actually scale this up to full resolution, or even that high, which is full HD, right? And it looks horrible. I mean, yeah, it does, right? But we can go to Gaussian blur and enter enough high number to have full quality. Somewhere around here, I think 6 is enough, or maybe 7, to get full quality. Suddenly we have full quality and super high res image, right? It's like gazillion times larger. So we're gonna save that, and let's head back to DAZ Studio. Now obviously there is a lot of things you can do to use these backgrounds inside. I'm gonna remove that heavy prop, And we're just gonna use a very simple hot girl scans. I'm gonna use let me just see if I, yeah, here I'm gonna use pattern 107 or this one here, and then just gonna load the one where she's sitting on the floor, no ottoman. That's our girl. And we're gonna load the background into the environment tab in here. So that there is a backdrop option here. I'm gonna click there, and then once it's added, it has a white color which we want. And then here, click on the small icon and click on browse. And we're gonna do the super advanced function of adding the backdrop here. Wow. All right, and as you can see, that now goes so quickly that we are basically live. Ta-da! Done. Now, there are things that we can or cannot do with such a background. First of all, it should have a similar height. The camera should be angled in a specific way so it matches the backdrop, right? You need to add your own lighting in this case because the background doesn't have lighting. So you would kind of use a similar lighting you had originally, all right? But just look at it, when you are rendering now, I'm gonna do full HD, and I'm gonna do, let's say we wanna do, for instance, full quality, at least 1, right? And what happens now when I render this is that now this girl has a little bit of emission added to her just so she looks nice. We can reduce that if our background has a little bit too much of it's a bit darker looking, right? But the thing is, if I now render this, we are rendering now at full HD, right, which is I think over 16 times larger. I mean, it's already done. It's already done. It's finished, right? Because the scenery doesn't occupy that amount of extra stuff, right? The memory overhead. So I'm telling you, this is the fastest way to use your sets, is to create a simple background. Now you can also project this background. I'm not going to show that right now. We can project that background or this image onto a plane behind your character and move it around, or that also enables you to zoom in with your camera and the background will follow, right? So there's more than we can just cover in this quick, kind of turn out into a quick workshop, into a smaller workshop here, right? We are, I think, past half an hour now. The thing is, if you want the absolute fastest solution, I mean, it's so quick, it's literally just clicking on a button. I actually have this set pre-rendered here. It's called Hot HDR Set Sci-Fi Station, both a DAZ Studio version and a standalone XER version. Now this set looks amazing and renders as quickly because it's pre-done, right? It has all these 10K gorgeous maps that use real lighting data. So when you place your characters, it will feel like you're there, and it has no overhead of the scene, 0. So as you can see, it's a great looking set. It has all cool angles captured from the scenery with gorgeous lighting and all that, even up here on the set. So it's really cool. So guys, these are in my Render Hub store. Check them out. There's a link below this video. Now, if you want to learn more about DAZ Studio, there is also our super 3D Art Quick Start, which you can grab, frankly, just for $1 for 7 days preview or trial. And that is more of the stuff we just saw, right? So if you like the stuff, the cool, the way I teach is I always showcase from multiple angles. I give you options and tools and tricks, because I believe in a variety of solutions. All right, I want you to open up your kind of your space, your creativity, and see how can this be done from this angle or from this angle? How about this angle, right? And when you have all that combined, when you really learn how to do stuff on your own, you end up being creative and you come up with solutions that fit your personal style, wallet, space, and time, right? All right, so guys, that's pretty much it. There's a link below this video to this as well. Got to sign off before I talk too much. Yeah, too late for that right now in this particular video. But I just wanted to give you a cool 5-trick kind of solution to the laggy view. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Go ahead, have fun, check out the links below. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon again.